hit those 4 more buttons and it works.
Okay.
That's why I don't trust buttons. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Happy 4th of July. Got my red, white, and blue shirt on. We're switching up this month. And according to the textbook, if you will, for the month of July, we'll be talking about how we relate to our neighbors. And, you know, one of the things that Jesus taught was that we love our neighbor as ourselves. What is a neighbor and what does that involve? That's kind of where we're starting today in Proverbs. And this whole month will be lessons about relationships with our neighbors. Our neighbors is everybody else, I guess. So this is from various passages in Proverbs, and the purpose statement is to acknowledge the risk in loving your neighbor. And whenever we love somebody, there's always a little bit of risk involved because you let your guard down. When we love God, there is some risk involved. I apologize for that, but there is some risk involved.
There is.
So when we choose to love another person, we put ourselves kind of in their power. And Proverbs is not just about that, but Proverbs is about, I think it's called wisdom, part of the wisdom literature. And it's just a bunch of what we call old sayings, things that we heard our mom and dad say, and older people growing up. A lot of them contradict each other, but I think that's because every situation is not the same. And to me, from what I get from Proverbs, the theme throughout is to have enough wisdom to be God-centered in your life, in your dealings with other people, and you'll be safer. It talks a lot about people who love to do wrong. It talks about the fools all the time, and you're a fool if you do foolish. And that sounds kind of stupid, but if you read through Proverbs, it tells how foolish people act, how wise people act. But to get specifically to the passages that they've chosen in here, it's talking about relating to your neighbors, to those around you. And one of the things it says is don't withhold good from someone if you have it in your power to do that good now. In other words, if somebody's child is sick and they need to get to the doctor and they don't have a car, you say, well, I can take you tomorrow, next day, but you could take them today. That's withholding something good that you could do. And according to Proverbs, God thinks that's wrong. The point is, if we can do good for someone, then we should do it. And not hold back, trying to make sure we don't inconvenience ourselves. And it goes on to say, don't think evil or plan evil against your neighbor. In other words, don't look for ways to hurt other people. I've always heard the saying, if you can't help me, don't try to hurt me. And that's kind of what this is saying, is in God's eyes, it is evil if we wish harm or try to bring harm on other people. And we all know that there are people who delight in seeing other people's misfortune. According to Scripture, God doesn't like that. And as we move on to a little bit more business and legal advice, and in Proverbs 6 it says, if you guarantee a loan with your neighbor, in other words, if you agree to co-sign a note with your neighbor, then you have trapped yourself by what you spoke, and that it will probably come back to haunt you. And if you think about it, you can get in just as much trouble now as you could back then by trusting people too far and putting yourself in their power. Because if you co-sign this loan with a person, well then they're sort of off the hook. Because they know if they don't pay the loan, or the people who have loaned the money are not coming after them, they're coming after the person who guaranteed the loan. It's just like if you co-sign a loan with someone today and they default, with the bank or whoever doesn't care about them because you swore that you would take care of it, so then you're liable. And I think what the advice that it's trying to give is we don't willingly put ourselves in someone else's power by speaking up and saying, yeah, I'll sign with you, I'll help you. You have given control of your life over to that neighbor. And so, according to the Scripture, you better really know and trust that neighbor good. And I know it's contradictory. I just got through saying that these lessons are about relating to our neighbor, and I just quoted where it says, don't withhold good from someone who deserves it, because God doesn't like that. And then here it says, be careful who you do good for. So it seems like a contradiction, but again, I lost my train of thought. But it's not a contradiction necessarily, because every situation is different. And we go back with that idea to the wisdom literature. All through Proverbs, it's saying we need to have wisdom, which means think through what you're going to jump into doing. It says a lot in Proverbs over and over, the fool rushes in, the fool opens his mouth real quick and speaks out. Think before you speak. Think before you act. And that doesn't mean that you can't love your neighbor. It just means have a little sense about it. If you put yourself in a bad position, then you're kind of putting all of your family at risk as well if you have family. So it doesn't hurt to be wise in what we do. And it says if you get into this bad situation with someone, then don't rest until you get yourself out of it by whatever way, if you just have to worry them to death till they give up on you and say, okay, forget it. It's just saying how important it is not to put yourself in someone's power. And, like I said to start with, if we choose to love someone, we have put ourselves somewhat in their power. Again, while it seems a contradiction, it's just kind of common sense thinking. Think before you speak, think before you act. That's something that I've always been guilty of, is act before I think, or promise something before I think that, hey, it ain't no way I can keep that promise. God doesn't appreciate us when we do that. And in the student book, if you had a chance to read it, it's a good story in there. We've all heard the saying, good fences make good neighbors. And that's true, but the idea of that goes back when everybody had livestock. And if you keep your livestock inside a good fence, and they're not out trampling on everybody else's stuff, tearing it up so people don't get mad at you. That's what that means. But it's an interesting story. It's kind of funny that the writer talks about how sometime in their life they moved into this corner lot in town, I guess, or suburb. And it had a fence down one side between theirs and the neighbors. And the father in the family was being conscientious, I guess, and he got to looking at the deed and realized that the fence was not in the right place. Somebody had made a mistake, and they actually had a couple of feet or whatever of the neighbor's property line inside their fence. Well, so the guy decides he's going to be honest, and he goes to the tax and deed people, gets the neighbor involved in it and says, you know, we got a mistake here. And the person from the tax office has to speak up. You know, he's kind of, to me, he's a fool. He should have kept his mouth shut. He says, well, you know, you got squatters' rights in this state. If you keep up this for a few more years and your neighbor who actually owns it doesn't keep it up, then it actually legally becomes yours. He has no more claim to it. Well, the guy shouldn't have never said that, because then the neighbor got suspicious. And it ended up, it broke down their relationship because the neighbor didn't want to see it. The neighbor said, well, the guy offered to buy it from him. If it had any sense, what he would have done was he'd moved the fence. That's what I would have done, no matter what it cost. Then it would have been over with. But they didn't do that. He thought they could get along and work it out. Well, the neighbor just got more and more suspicious, so it ruined the relationship between them. So he tried to love his neighbor. It didn't work out. And if we go back in Proverbs, we see, you know, you got to make wise choices, and it's difficult to do when we're trying to help people. A lot of people that we want to help, we see need help of people, and it's hard to put this in the right words. A lot of people are in need because of simple bad luck. They were born in the wrong place. A lot of people are in trouble and need help because they have made bad choices. They continue to make bad choices. And if we try to help those people, it gets to be a quagmire. In the teacher book, which I know y'all don't have access to read, the writer's talking about when he was a newly out of school, a young pastor, idealistic, gonna save the world, how over and over he got taken in, and this is not against you, Madison. It's a human thing. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor or not. But over and over they got taken in by people that tried to help. They take them in the house, they give them money, and the people just kept on doing like they were doing because basically they were enabling them. And you know how, I guess in every town, but this town, you always got people coming up to you with some stupid story. They want money. And that's what they want is money. They don't want no help other than they want some money they ain't got to work for. So we get jaded, we get cynical. We don't want to help anybody. And as the writer in his book said, as he got older, he learned that you're not going to save the world every day. And sometimes, rather, if you help people sometimes immediately without thinking through it, sometimes you're just enabling them. And as he says as he got older, he realized it was probably better to work at some of the causes of why these people get in these situations, rather than just hand them money or take them in your house till they sober up, try to dry them out, then turn them back out. So it's just examples of the difficulty involved, and I don't claim to have any answers here, really. The only answer I can say is be wise in how we try to help people. You know, Jesus said that the second most important commandment is to love our neighbor. And here in Proverbs, we got all these verses telling us how we can get in trouble helping our neighbor. And, it's a difficult situation to be in. And it makes us want to just say, the heck with the world, I'll take care of myself. And let everybody else take care of themselves. And it's easy to see how people get that mindset. Thankfully, everybody doesn't have that mindset. The churches do a lot of good throughout the world, helping people who need help. And it talks also about, since we're talking about neighbors, and this is kind of just jumping from one thing to another, but that's kind of what Proverbs does to me. We send a lot of money overseas as a church. The United States has sent lots of money overseas trying to help people in other parts of the world. It's a little bit safer to, and this is not my quote, it came from one of the teacher students, but it's a lot safer to buy mosquito nets for the little children in Africa, because it ain't like they're going to come up to your door next week and want some more mosquito nets or some money. The people we help right around here, right around close to us, we're going to see them again probably. So it's gotten to the point a lot of people feel that it's safer to send their charity elsewhere. But there's another old saying, and I don't know if this came in the Bible or not, but it's charity begins at home. Which means you're supposed to look after those close around you first. It goes back to helping the neighbor. Is our neighbor the alcoholic or the drug addict in South Henderson, or is it the children in Africa? Who's our neighbor? Again, there's risk involved when you try to help close at home, which is why so much help goes abroad. Not that there's not a need, but I personally have a hard time getting really excited about helping elsewhere when I see just as much pitifulness right within a few miles of you. Therein, is that trap, and that open trap, and the danger of getting in trouble trying to help your neighbor. And again, I don't have the answers, but I think Proverbs is attempting to give some answers and simply using wisdom. And Proverbs also says another thing that I hadn't mentioned, that I did mention it, but not in detail like I should have. Part of wisdom, according to Proverbs, is putting God first. And I think sometimes if we would do a better job of that, we may, if we say, what does God really want me to do? What does God need done here? Maybe that would kind of trigger that stop and think before we jump into a situation that is fraught with danger that we have not stopped to think about. So, according to Proverbs, all wisdom leads back and comes from God. So if we stop and think and try to make wise choices, then we're doing more what we're honoring God more. If we just go off and act like we got a wild hair or something, run this way and that, then that's not what God wants us to do or needs us to do. So I guess the moral of all this back and forth in Proverbs is you're supposed to try to help others. You're supposed to love your neighbor, but you're supposed to love God first and the most. And while we're trying to help our neighbors, let's try to be wise about the way we do it. It's kind of ugly to say, but you kind of have to protect yourself while you're helping other people. It's a dangerous game, I guess. It's about the only thing you can say. And we got a few more minutes. Is anybody else got anything they want to share, a different take on this? And I don't guess I haven't given anybody any answers on how we do this, but I don't think there's any one right answer. I think that's why Proverbs contradicts itself so much. But I guess the main consistent right answer would be stop and think before you leap or before you speak.
Well, Tim, I had a co-worker who had embezzled some money, and she needed some money to stay out of jail. Well, she came to me, and I thought about it, and I gave her the money to stay out of jail. God has blessed me. She has not paid me back one penny. I have not asked for it, but He has blessed me. And it has blessed me to know that I kept her from going to jail. I could have not lived with myself if she'd gone to jail.
I remember, and I ought not tell this because I'm ashamed of it. Did y'all know a farmer named Joe Adcox? He was from the Cokesbury community. Anyway, he always hired local help. And one time, and right many years ago when Amy was a little bit baby, one of his help called him one night, needed a ride somewhere, and I guess they was probably into drugs. I'm sure they were, because there's no other reason people would behave like this. Well, he went to help these people in the middle of the night, and 3 or 4 of them ganged up, beat him up, beat him real bad, robbed him, left him for dead. And so everybody was talking about that, you know. So everybody trusted everybody a little bit less. And one night, Amy was a little bitty. It was in the winter, it was cold as I don't know what. And Amy was sick. And so we was me and I had both been up with her because she had some kind of virus and had a high fever. And somebody knocked on the door. And I went to the door. It was this guy that had helped me some off and on over the years on the farm. Him and his cousins, brothers and sisters, all of them had helped me a lot. And he said, man, I need a ride. Apparently he had done got down there in our neighborhood and got stranded. They were all into drinking a lot and doing whatever drugs they could get hold of, but when they was able to, they were good workers, and they was loyal. And he said, man, I need a ride back up to Bath Home, and which is 3 or 4 miles up the road, and that's close to where they lived at. And I didn't help him, because I thought about Joe Adcock. And I said, I don't want to. I said, I can always get my pistol and carry it with me. I said, but I don't want to get in no mess. And when I told him I couldn't help him, I said, the youngest sick, I don't want to leave. And it was like 10 degrees out there. And so he's going to have to walk to Bath Home. And on his face, I could see, when I told him no, I could see that I had betrayed him. And I'm 99.999% sure that he won't want to try nothing. I don't think they were that kind of folks, but I don't know. It just hit me wrong that night, and I said, no, I can't help you, and turned him away. And I ain't never seen that guy. I've seen some of his family, but I've never seen him since then. He's somewhere around here if he's still alive, but I'm sure he'll never forget that I let him down after he was loyal and helped me. And I've never stopped feeling bad about that. So, you know,
Some choices are hard.
It's a hard world to live in, and Proverbs doesn't tell us that all these choices we have to make are very hard. And you live with the consequences one way or the other. But it's changed me to this day, and I thought about this when I got to reading this about helping your neighbor and whatnot. It'll bother me the rest of my life that I didn't help that guy. And I really and truly think that he was on the level and needed a fight. So, this goes to show you it ain't always easy. I guess that's the only answer I got from this lesson, is it ain't easy.
It isn't easy, no. Especially today, it's not as easy as it was when there were fewer choices for people.
Yeah.
But just like this girl told me, she said, my brother before he died asked me, had I paid you back? But she didn't mention that, but he was like that.
So it's weighing on her heart.
I can live without it. I'm satisfied. I can live without it.
Well, if one thing that I do know for sure, Proverbs notwithstanding, that if we help others, it's going to cost us something.
But you'll be rewarded in the end.
Mm-hmm. But it's going to cost us in the here and now. And that's just,
Yep.
if we give to somebody else, then we have less ourselves. That's why a lot of people don't like to give, because we want to get all we can get.
Well, you know what gets me is they have the GoFundMe pages especially during the COVID. How many people give to the GoFundMe pages?
Apparently, if you got a good story and it catches on, you can get a lot of money. There's been a lot of fake ones out there. I thought about starting up a fake one myself, but some of them are for real. But a large portion are
But
phony.
before then, you haven't heard of people helping people and all that much. I hadn't, but you get a GoFundMe page and you got thousands of dollars in no time flat.
Because you can give anonymously, and there's no connection involved, no commitment involved. It costs you, okay, you give $5, $10, okay, so you can go rest of your day or the week feeling good like you've helped somebody. But just like sending the mosquito nest to Africa is safer, because ain't nobody coming back to you and say, I need some more money. So, that's what it is. We're all scared.
Also human. And you might have that shame
Yeah.
in your life, but you are human. And your body said, oh, I don't want to get beat up. And that was your first reaction. And sometimes once you have time to process, you have a different reaction. But it doesn't make you a bad person and unloved by God. You're a wonderful child of God. We all are. I'm getting preachy.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but
I'm practicing.
you're practicing your preaching.
Yes.
To brutalize another adage. But anyway, I'm going to shut up unless anybody else got something else they want to add. Don Rose, before we start, can you do Sunday school next Sunday?
Next Sunday.
Thank you. We want to get together with Amy and Chris, spend some time with them.